warm welcome to you all to the one-on-one set. In the studio tonight, we have with us Rebecca D'Souza. She is the author of a book titled 89 Questions to the Moon. Tonight, during this episode of One-on-One, Rebecca will share with us the role of creative writing in her life and also talk about her recent publication. Rebecca, thank you so much for being with us tonight in the studio of the NBC.
Thank you for having me.
Rebecca, so you are 26 years old and you recently published your first book titled 89 Questions to the Moon. So, first of all, share with us how did you develop this passion for writing?
So it's quite surprising for me when I think about it now because I never thought that I would write because when I was at school, it was not something that interested me. I wasn't someone who wrote. But then when I started my studies in India in fine arts, I studied art history. I started writing because it was the environment, the creativity at first that spurred that love for writing because I had to do a lot of research, a lot of reading. And then in my second year, I just had this like image that came into my head of a little boy who was looking up at the moon. And a few days later, the questions came, like what kind of questions the boy was asking the moon. And that's how it started.
So, you were more into drawings then instead of writing.
Yes, I actually was at the beginning more into drawing and painting than I was writing, but it has changed since.
And did you do any studies regarding, creative writing and all?
Not at all, but with COVID, we all got a little bit more time to do some side hobbies. So I did follow an online creative writing course. It didn't really help me, but it does give you food for thought.
So, what's the role of writing now in your life?
Well, since before and since COVID, it has been an outlet for like emotions, like it's emotional regulation. So it's very important for me to write because it's a way of expressing myself. Often in between the lines, it's actually how I feel, or it's past experiences or current experiences that are seen through what I write.
And you've actually published 89 Questions to the Moon last year, right?
Yes.
So, how was the process for you, to write a book, then publish it?
So I
Take us
started.
down, like the journey.
Sure. So it started in 2019, and I was sharing the stories online, so on my social media. And at the end of 2021, which was also the time that I came back to Mauritius, the book was ready, and friends and family who had been following it online said, "Well, why don't you make it a real book, publish it?" And I was like, "That's true. Why not?" So then in 2022, I started asking around, like, what are the options I have? Because I wasn't in a place to finance the publishing myself. So I asked around, and I fell on the fund, the President's Fund for Creative Writing, who give a grant to writers, and I applied to that, and then there was the process period, and then in May 2023, I got the grant. And then I published it in December 2023.
And the moon has always been a subject of interest to many. It represents, mystery, curiosity. So, what is the significance of the title, 89 Questions to the Moon?
Well, 89 Questions to the Moon doesn't have a real there's no like symbolism behind it.
It's very direct,
Yeah,
it's like
it
it
was just
reflects what's written
direct.
in the book.
Yes, it was just meant to be very simple and very direct. Just so when someone has the book and they read it, 89 questions to the moon, and that's more or less it. The 89, there is also no symbolism behind it because for me, I just thought about 89 and I didn't want to change it. So I kept it as it was.
And how was the creative process? to write a book? Was it draining for you to balance with other commitments as well?
No, because I was a student, so it was much more easier. It's not like I had major responsibilities or obligations. And then it also fell in the COVID period. So I was at one point studying online. So it gave me a lot of time to work on the book.
And also many times writers, face, writer's block. Did at some point you had that challenge concerning writer's block?
Yes, I when I think about it now, I did because let's say we divide the book into four quarters. In the third quarter, I had a bit of a lag. I wasn't really sure what to write about. I didn't want to repeat what was already said. I didn't want it to be like off topic. But then I gave myself some time, around 2 weeks, and then it came back again, the flow of thought.
And how did you decide on the structure of the book? Because that's what makes it different, the way it is structured, the content of the book. So talk to us, where did the concept come from?
So the concept originates from me sharing it on social media because I was like, okay, so I'm going to write short stories for children with illustrations and I'm going to share it on social media. So I wanted it to be very simple, very direct, so that a child can understand. So that's why you see the question, there's the answer, then there'll be another question and the answer, just so that it can be understandable for
You need to
kids.
keep it, very direct for a child to grasp the meaning of the book, right?
Yes.
So there are also very different themes like dreams, identity. What pushed you to write about those themes in the book?
Well, when you read the book, I don't know if some people will realize, but young human is me. So these are subconscious thoughts, and this is what I explain as the inner child, me talking about and asking questions, wanting to know about the world. Because as all children, we're very curious. We want to find out more about things we don't know about.
So it was a way for you to talk to your younger self?
Yes, yeah, it was. And also, I love the moon. It's so in astrology, it's my ruling planet. And during my studies, the moon was a sort of connection to my mother because I was feeling homesick. And I believe that all of us, even if we're not in the same country, we're looking at the same moon. So it's like you're connected in some way.
The cover of the book also is very interesting. Talk to us about it. Did you design the cover?
Yes, I did design the cover. So that again, I wanted it to be very simple, and then I like the colors blue, white, and green. So that's what I decided on.
And also, can you share with us a moment of epiphany or a significant insight you gained during the writing process?
I realized that I actually like writing. It was something then because as I explained, I didn't think that I would write. But because it happened naturally and over
You
time,
didn't plan really the themes and the content, right? It was
not at
mostly
all.
going with the flow for you.
Yes. Yeah.
So in that way, do you feel that the journey of writing 89 Questions to the Moon transformed your relationship with storytelling and creative writing?
Yes, it definitely did. Because around the same time, I also started a blog that's called Oiseau Libre. It's my artist name. And at this, from that, I realized how much storytelling means to me. I love storytelling. I like passing a message through characters, through a setting, through emotions. Yeah,
What are the aspects you believe it's important to have to do a storytelling?
that's a good question I never thought about. I think it's definitely what is the main message, what is important, what is worth sharing, and then how do I communicate it through a character that I make up. Yeah, and I really like animals as characters, or like personifying planets, anything that deals with nature.
Rebecca, without giving away too much, what is one of your favorite questions asked in the book and why?
So the question is on page 14. It's Moon, why do you like your creators? And I like that question because what I mean to say through that question is why do you like and accept all your, as they say in popular culture, imperfections? But actually, this is just who we are. All the scars, whether it's emotional, physical, or mental, is a part of who we are. And it's actually something we should be proud about. Um, and then the moon says, well, I'm proud about my creators and like the holes that I have and the imperfections.
And are there any personal experiences or stories that inspired some of the questions?
Yes, so there's one question at the very beginning. It's when will I know that I'm in love? So I was in India and my I was like talking to my cousins. They're very young on WhatsApp, and her mom, my aunt, had recounted that she had asked that question to my uncle, and then he told her, "Well, you'll know that you're in love when you see or recognize a star that's brighter than the others in the sky." And I thought that was really touching, because kids, they ask you all these kinds of, they ask their parents all kinds of questions, and then you have to be really creative about how you explain certain things when they're a bit too young to go into the deeper side of it. So I think it's really commendable of parents and how they structure answers.
Like you said, your book is targeted for younger people, for children. It's a form of children literature. So, at some point, was it difficult for you to match the language of that of a kid?
I think for me, what helped me is I really just did not put any restrictions or limitations. I didn't think about it. I just wrote what I wanted to write, which may or may not be good, but I gave myself that liberty. Uh, And then, of course, later on, when I was restructuring the book to give it structure and organization for printing, I did go over the questions. A proofreader from the fund went over the book. Um,
And have you met some of the readers? What are the criticism that you've got?
I have met a few. I'm still meeting them, and what they enjoy is that it is readable for any age. Like it can be a child, it can be an adult, but you still find yourself through the words,
Do you feel that children read nowadays?
much less than they should do.
Yeah.
They spend most of their time and attention and focus and energy on screens. And it's not to say that it's a bad thing, but I think that words are, well, for me, are definitely more meaningful than moving images. I think through reading books and, like, let's say novels or whatever content it expands your imagination, especially as a child. And I think there's
Words
a
are
lack of
indeed
it.
very powerful.
Yeah.
And in that sense, can you talk about the role of language and imagery in your book, which is really full of it, right? So, how did you choose your words to evoke, the mystery, vastness of the moon?
I use a lot of adjectives. I like using metaphors as well. And then again, just be as simple and direct as possible so that when reading it, you can imagine what is being said.
How do you view the relationship of language and emotions?
Language and emotions. I think it's really important to learn how to express ourselves through words, because we most of the time talk, but writing is a healing experience. I would recommend it to anyone, because sometimes you might not have anyone who wants to hear what you say, but at least you know that the paper will accept anything that you have to say.
Rebecca, your main audience are the children for the book, like I said before. So, what do you hope the takeaway from that book?
I want readers to take away that it's really important to honor imagination and curiosity, because as we grow older and become adults and we become parents, it there's a detachment and like a severe disconnection from the child that we used to be, but that child is always going to be here. It's why we have become who we are today. So I think it's important to honor our past experiences because that's what we have grown from.
How much time did it take you to complete the book? And also, how was the publication process, go?
So 2 years for the writing, and then 1 year for the publication process, which was in 2022, where I started, and then it carried on into 2023. So what I did, I applied for the fund, the grant through the fund, and once I was accepted, I contacted l'édition de l'Océan Indien, who have published the book, and that's when I learned about how to design the cover. You need to find someone who's going to structure it on the computer correctly. My friend Jeffrey did that. And then proofreading, which is very important, and then the printing that happened. And then at the very end, once all the most important part was done, there was the book launch that happened on the 6th of December. And I was sponsored by the municipality of Beaubassin-Rosil.
What are the challenges that you faced during the writing process, and how did you overcome them? Writing and publication process.
I think it's really important to ask questions because there are a lot of things we don't know. So ask questions, find out, ask around, and people are there to help you.
Rebecca, so are there any authors or books that have significantly influenced your writing style or than thinking?
So as a child, I loved Aesop's fables. It's where you have these personified animals, and behind each story, which are very short, there's always a moral. So that is what I really enjoyed reading those when I was a kid. And that's what influenced this book. And then during COVID, I came across Young Pueblo's Clarity and Connection, which where he discusses emotions, and his writing style is very like broken. He doesn't give much attention to grammar, which is something I also don't necessarily like giving attention to, and though it is important. I was inspired by that, like the liberty of writing, and I really like uh, Carl Sagan's Cosmos. It's a book that talks about like the universe and how it was created, and I just think it's very interesting and very inspiring and humbles you because like you're just this little speck on Earth.
And Rebecca, the concept of questioning is powerful, and which we see that a lot in your book. So, how do you think your book contributes to the culture of curiosity and questioning among children in today's society?
I think it pushes them to not be afraid or not feel ashamed to ask questions because sometimes children might be told, oh, that's just not important. But I think nature, especially the connection we have to nature as children, is very important, especially when it comes to their development. So it makes them wonder, so why is this like that? Why is that this way? Why is the sky this color? And I think it's important to know.
So, do you feel that this book brought any changes regarding your perspective?
Yes, it changed my perspective on the necessity of writing because before it wasn't something that I thought was crucial, but now it's become very important. It's vital to share what you think is necessary to share.
And do you have actually any upcoming projects, the new book that you're working on?
Yes, so in 2022, I was working as a teacher at a primary school. So I used to take the bus to go to Belle Étoile, and I loved watching like the sky, the colors, the mountains. I was very moved by the immensity of it. awe-inspired is the exact term. So from that, I started writing these short poems. So that's what the next book will be about, or it's rather a collection of poems based off the Mauritian landscape.
And based on your first experience on writing a book, what advice would you like to give young writers who dream of publishing their own book?
Don't be scared to share your work because ever since I published, a few friends or even people I didn't know contacted me saying, I would love to share a work that I have, but I don't feel ready. I feel scared. So I would say, don't feel scared. If you believe what you've written needs to be shared, there are so many ways to share it. So just go with it without looking back.
Beautiful words. We have nearly come to the end of this episode, but before that, Rebecca, would you like to read us a question that you've asked to the moon?
Sure. So I will read a question that is on page 68. So it's Moon, why do humans build walls? And what young human replies is why is it that we are pushed not to look over walls? Why can't we see things that we've been told by our parents? No, you shouldn't know about this, or it's not. We're not supposed to be involved. And then he asks, then what should we do? And the moon replies, look over the wall and smile at your neighbor. That is enough for a seed of change to grow. So,
Lovely. Thank you, Rebecca. It was such a delight to have you on the set tonight and learn more about children's literature, your passion for writing.
well, thank you very much for having me.
Dear viewers, we have now come to the end of this episode. Thank you for your time. We hope to catch you next week at the same time, same channel. Have a great evening.